Episode 7. David sat in the office of Michael, his lawyer, early the next morning. The room was quiet except for the faint hum of the air conditioning and the sound of papers rustling as Michael meticulously reviewed the folder of evidence David had brought. Michael was a man of calm professionalism, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. His reputation as a thorough and unrelenting lawyer had drawn David to him. And now, more than ever, David needed someone like him on his side. As Michael flipped through the documents, his brow furrowed deeper with each page. He glanced at David occasionally, his expression unreadable, until he finally placed the folder on the desk and folded his hands. "You have a strong case here," Michael said, his voice measured. "Her actions aren't just unethical, they're illegal. We're looking at fraud, misrepresentation, and financial abuse within the marriage. If you want to pursue this, we can sue for damages, file for divorce, and push for full custody of your children. Given the circumstances, the court would likely rule in your favor." David nodded slowly, his hands gripping the edges of his chair. The idea of going to court, of exposing everything in such a public and final way, made his stomach churn. But this wasn't about revenge. It was about protecting his children. "I just want what's best for my kids," David said, his voice firm. "They've been through enough already. I need to make sure they're safe and cared for. I need to protect them." Michael leaned forward, his expression softening slightly. "I understand, David. We can file a suit that ensures Sarah is held accountable for her deception. You're also entitled to claim compensation for all the rent you've paid over the years, given that it was paid under false pretenses. The legal system can work for you here, but it's entirely up to you how far you want to take this." David sat in silence for a moment, his mind racing. He thought about the years of struggle, the sacrifices he'd made, the countless nights he'd spent worrying about bills while Sarah secretly thrived. The anger and betrayal still burned hot within him, but he knew he couldn't let those emotions guide his decisions. His children were his priority, and every step he took had to be for their benefit. "I'll do whatever it takes to secure a stable future for my kids," David said finally. "File the suit. She needs to be held accountable." Michael nodded, his expression resolute. "I'll draft the paperwork today. We'll serve her with the papers by the end of the week. This won't be easy, David, but you're doing the right thing." Meanwhile, across town, Sarah was in the living room of her parents' house, her emotions a volatile mix of desperation and shame. Her father sat in his armchair, his face a mask of stern disappointment, while her mother hovered nearby, wringing her hands and occasionally dabbing at her tear-streaked face with a tissue. Sarah's voice cracked as she pleaded, "I didn't mean for things to get so out of hand. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was protecting my family." Her father's sharp eyes bore into her, his tone cold and unyielding. "Protecting your family?" he repeated, his voice laced with incredulity. "You let your husband suffer. You let your children live on the edge of financial insecurity. Don't stand there and tell me you were protecting anyone but yourself." "I wasn't just thinking of myself," Sarah protested, her voice rising. "I saw an opportunity to build something stable, something that could secure our future. Yes, I made mistakes, but my intentions were good." Her mother stepped forward, her voice trembling with emotion. "Sarah, do you hear yourself? Your intentions don't excuse the damage you've done. David trusted you. We trusted you. And now look at the mess you've made." Sarah's defenses crumbled further under her mother's gentle reproach. She turned away, pacing the room as she tried to gather her thoughts. I don't know what to do. I didn't think it would come to this." Her father stood, his imposing presence filling the room. "You've made your bed, Sarah," he said, his voice hard. "Now you'll have to lie in it. Don't expect sympathy from us. Not after what you've done to David and those children." Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she sank into a chair, her head in her hands. Her parents had always been her safety net, the people she turned to when life became too difficult. But now, even they were distancing themselves, leaving her to face the consequences of her actions alone. Back at the apartment, David spent the evening with his children, trying to create some semblance of normalcy amidst the chaos. They played a board game on the living room floor, their laughter a brief respite from the storm brewing around them. For a few moments, David allowed himself to forget about lawyers, lawsuits, and betrayals. When Emma, his oldest, asked why Mommy wasn't coming home, David struggled to find the words. He knelt beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Mommy's staying with Grandma and Grandpa for a little while, he said gently. But don't worry, sweetheart. Everything's going to be okay. Emma studied his face, her eyes filled with a wisdom beyond her years. Are you sure, Daddy? David smiled, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. I'm sure, he said, his voice steady. I'll make sure of it. The following week, Sarah was served with the legal papers. The reality of the situation hit her like a freight train as she read through the lawsuit. Fraud, financial misrepresentation, a demand for full custody of the children, and compensation for the rent David had paid. It was all there in black and white, a stark reminder of the consequences she now faced. For the first time, Sarah realized just how much she had underestimated David. She had always seen him as someone who would endure anything without complaint, someone who would never fight back. But now, she saw a different side of him, a side that was determined to protect his family, no matter the cost. The confrontation was far from over, and the road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges. But for David, this was the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter where he would rebuild his life, piece by piece, with honesty, integrity, and the unshakable determination to create a better future for his children. Are you hooked on David's fight for justice? Don't miss the next chapter of this gripping story. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode of The Veil of Deceit. In the next episode, David takes the fight to court, where shocking revelations and emotional testimony bring tensions to a breaking point. But just when David thinks he has the upper hand, Sarah reveals a secret that could change everything. Don't miss the dramatic episode 8, David's breaking point.